Welcome back to the Law and Crime Network and Law and Crime on Sirius XM Radio. I'm your host, Jesse Weber, and thanks for joining us. We are covering the Jeffrey Willis case out of Michigan. We have a live feed in that case. They're going on a 10-minute break, so while they go in that break, let's recap about where we are and where we think the case is going. Jeffrey Willis is a convicted murderer. He was already convicted last year in the shooting death of Rebecca Blech. This shooting happened in 2014. He's also been implicated in trying to kidnap a teenager in 2016. Well, let's go all the way back to 2013. This woman went missing. Her name is Jessica Heringa. She was a Michigan mother. She worked at the ExxonMobil gas station. She disappeared on the night of April 26, 2013. Her body has never been found. No one knows what happened to her. Well, the prosecution is saying Jeffrey Willis sure does. Based upon evidence from those other two events and evidence in this case, they are saying he abducted her, he killed her, and he got rid of her. And now what we are learning today is some very interesting testimony. We learned from one of the officers in this case who investigated the matter that Mr. Willis had a grandfather who passed away. It was at his grandfather's house that there were a number of Tide bleach bottles found in the basement. We also discovered that outside of the house there was a crumpled note, and on that note was a list of different items. Everything from I'm going to read it actually to you. I want you to know. There's a section titled Clothes that had all this different things on it, including a sentence that said, and her panties. That says a hoodie, a coat. The second section of the note says small camera, big camera, gas can, matches, lube, small tripod. Third section says kit, and it has ball gags, restraint boards, handcuffs, keys, gloves, tape and washcloths, vibrators. So if someone is trying to kidnap, sexually assault, murder, and ultimately get rid of a body, you look at that note and you say, this guy did it. But is it possible, what we learned under cross-examination, that all of this was made at the same time? Maybe it was for a ski trip, which is what the defense was trying to say earlier. Maybe this was those panties he's referring to was for his wife. Remember, Jeffrey Willis was married. So it could be looked at in two different ways, especially when you don't have a body. Now, what I want to do for you right now is before we go back into the Willis case, and there's a lot to talk about, I want to play for you right now the top legal crime stories of the day, and when we come back, we'll dive deeper into the Jeffrey Willis case. That's testimony from the defendant's ex-wife in the Jeffrey Willis case. Welcome back to Law and Crime and Law and Crime on Sirius XM Radio. I'm your host, Jesse Weber. Jeffrey Willis is on trial for the murder of Jessica Heringa, an engaged mother who disappeared on April 26, 2013. She disappeared from her gas station job. Her body has never been found. But despite that, the prosecution is moving forward with their case. They're saying that Mr. Willis kidnapped her from her gas station job, killed her, and disposed of her. Well, what we were just playing for you there was the testimony of his ex-wife, because she said that, remember, Mr. Willis had a grandfather that passed away. His wife took care of him at the time. There were all these bleach and Tide bottles, a large number of them, empty, in the grandfather's home. Why would they be there? She said there was no reason why they should be there. Let's talk a little bit more about it with Law and Crime trial analyst Misty Marris. Now, again, we are waiting for our live feed in the courtroom, but as soon as we have it, we'll make sure to go to it. Misty, what did we learn? We learned that there's all these bottles empty in the grandfather's house. We learned today that there was a detective on the stand who investigated the grandfather's house and also said there were all these bottles and found it very strange. We also keep talking about this list, and for anybody just joining us, you have to hear about this. There was a crumpled note in the trash can outside of the grandfather's house that had a number of different items on them. One section was dedicated to different items of clothing, including a statement that said, her panties. The middle section had everything from different camera equipment to gas cans and matches. The bottom part was a rape kit, if you will. It had everything from ball gags to lube to restraints. I mean, Misty, the defense is saying maybe this list was made at separate times. Maybe it was about something else. Maybe it was about a snowmobile trip. That's why there was the gas can. What is the jury ultimately thinking of that list?
Well, look, that list looks terrible in this type of case because it has so many items that are so incriminating. Couple this with the testimony we just heard that there's no reason for for the bleach and whatnot to be in the grandfather's house. But the defense is going to do everything they can to raise that reasonable doubt, to say that there's some sort of alternative explanation for the items on this list, for what's found in the house. And also, Jesse, let's not forget where the defense is going to really try and stick with respect to their argument with the jury, that none of these items are linked to Jessica Haringa because there's no body.
Right, that's interesting. So her DNA was not found in his van. And for anybody who knows this case, his van is a character in of itself because it is alleged there are eyewitnesses who saw a silver van. Jeffrey Willis has a silver van. They saw this silver van outside of the ExxonMobil gas station when Jessica disappeared. They believe, the prosecutors are saying, that it was driven by Jeffrey Willis. So this silver van keeps coming in and out. But again, what do we know that says he killed her? How do we know? There's people who look at this case and say, maybe Jessica's alive. So how do we establish that?
That's the problem with no body murder cases, because if you have a body, there's so much that you learn in an autopsy. You might learn time of death, cause of death. There's all of these issues that you can't pin down in a case like this. So the prosecution has to base their case on circumstantial evidence. Now, that's not impossible. And in this particular case, there are certainly a lot of incriminating factors that we're seeing come out, especially with what we saw today, what's in the grandfather's house, what was in that van. It's like this stuff out of horror movies. But again, the defense is going to hammer home. You can't be talking about the fact that he has these items just alone. There has to be some evidence that a murder actually committed, and that murder was of Jessica Haringa. But I will say in this case, the judge was very liberal with what he allowed into the courtroom, because we heard testimony from a kidnap victim who escaped and made a positive identification of Willis.
Alleged. She says that Jeffrey Willis tried to kidnap her in 2016, took her into his van. She escaped. She said that he held her at gunpoint. This is what her claim is. Right. And it's very likely, ladies and gentlemen, that after this case, he may face a third trial in connection with that kidnapping. Now, Misty, I want you to stand by. We can talk so much about this note, but I think it would be better for the detective who actually testified earlier about this note. Remember, a crumpled note was found outside of Jeffrey Willis's grandfather's home in the trash can. It caught the detective's eye. Let's play you what was on that note. For anybody just joining us here on the Law&Crime Network and Law&Crime on Sirius XM Radio, you might be wondering, what is going on? What is this list? Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Jesse Weber. Well, we're covering the Jeffrey Willis case out of Michigan. Jeffrey Willis is a convicted murderer who's on trial for the second time. This time, he's on trial for the murder of Jessica Haringa, an engaged mother from Michigan who disappeared on April 26, 2013. Despite the fact her body has never been found, the prosecution is moving forward with their case. What you just listened to was the detective in this case who found a crumpled note outside of Jeffrey Willis's grandfather's home in the trash can, and it had a whole list of special items on it, including different items of clothing, including something that said "and her panties." It was also included a gas can, matches, restraints, ball gags, all these different items that seemingly someone would need to kidnap, sexually assault, murder, and dispose of a body. Now, the defense is saying that, hey, wait a second. You don't know when this note was made. You don't know who made this note. You don't know what it was for. Maybe it was made for other purposes. That's their argument. But the jury's hearing that note, and the viewers and the listeners are hearing that note. Begs a lot of questions about why somebody would make those things on a note. Joining me back again is Law&Crime trial analyst Misty Marris. Misty, we're waiting for the live feed. I'm told we have the feed. We're just waiting to go back live in there. I could maybe buy the gas can, the lube. Maybe it's for a ski trip. You need to take care of that motor vehicle, the snowmobile. Excuse me. Okay. Why do you have leather restraints and ball gags and a French tickler? I'm pretty sure I've never been on snowmobile trips like that, Misty.
No, not my kind of snowmobile trip either, Jesse. But you have to understand that the prosecution has a burden to prove their case with respect to Jessica Haringa individually beyond a reasonable doubt. So the reality is, while these items look terrible in conjunction with each other together, none of them are illegal. So it's still, the defense has an argument.
Well,
that there's no link to Jessica.
Well, there might be no link to Jessica yet, but I'll tell you what we could have a link to. There is a detective, Mark Goff, is on the stand, and I believe he is going to confirm that the handwriting on the note is the handwriting of Jeffrey Willis. Let's go live into that Michigan courtroom. Welcome back, everybody. This is Jesse Weber, your host here on the Law and Crime Network and Law and Crime on Sirius XM Radio. We have to take a quick break in our live coverage of the Jeffrey Willis case out of Michigan. And again, a man who's on trial for the murder of Jessica Heringa. A handwriting expert is on the stand. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll go straight into the courtroom.